All right, welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Club Outer Rim, where we are discussing season 9 of The Walking Dead. In this episode, we're going to talk about the final three episodes of the first half of the season, which is episodes 6, 7, and 8. Episode 6 is Who Are You Now? Episode 7 is Stradivarius, and episode 8 is Evolution. So we'll be right back to talk about that after this.
We all know round here, Solo always does shots first. Singing you'll know, raise your glass. What will sing you'll know, singing you'll know. At the Cantina Club.
All right, and let's hit the ground running here with the last three episodes. I'm going to go ahead and recap episode 6, which is called Who Are You Now? So basically, after much resistance, Judith convinces Michonne to help Magna's group by escorting them to the hilltop. While setting up radio transmitting equipment, Rosita and Eugene are followed by a strangely acting herd of walkers. Then Carol takes a now teenage Henry to Hilltop. You got to keep in mind, this is a 6-year time jump. So add 6 years to Henry. So Henry's roughly, I don't know, what does that make him, about 17
40.
now?
Oh,
40. Yeah. It's roughly, I'd say he's about 17, 18 now at this point. Maybe not quite that much, 16, 17.
Yeah.
So Henry's being taken by Carol to Hilltop to apprentice as a blacksmith. They're ambushed on the way by Jed, Regina, and several of the other saviors. When she'll remember, flashback to a previous episode.
Did you say Jed?
Yeah, that's his name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jed, J-E-D.
All right.
And so Carol and Jed had that confrontation a couple episodes ago. So flash forward 6 years, and they actually get ambushed by the same group. The saviors steal their supplies. Carol later, in a very amazing scene, as far as I'm concerned, old school Old Testament Carol comes out and burns this group alive. And then then Carol takes Henry to visit Daryl, because Daryl's basically out living on his own now and has a new pet, aptly named Dog. That's very Daryl. I like that naming. So he's just living alone in the wilderness. Negan remains a prisoner in Alexandria, but has struck up an apparent friendship with Judith and has taken on a less antagonistic attitude, apparently. So that's, in a nutshell, that is episode 6, Who Are You Now? So thoughts?
The time jump, I had some trouble with because of what I mentioned in our last episode, the problem of regressing characters after they've evolved significantly for the sake of the plot, of putting people back where they were before, if it's needed for the sake of the plot. And I felt kind of like they did that with Michonne and then with Maggie, because Maggie's disappeared, and there's an implication that some drastic thing happened between Michonne and Maggie, and between Michonne and the others, between the communities, that broke the communities apart. And one of the things that impressed me about Michonne at the beginning of this season was that she seemed to be evolving into a leader who was going to try to bring the communities together. The research she was doing on government and lawmaking and all, I thought, finally somebody is going to start doing that.
Step up. Yeah.
And I really like that. And now all that's gone. And
yeah.
We have an implication that something horrible happened with the X mark on her back, a brand of some kind, which also Daryl had on him. It seemed like something happened between the communities where they were ostracized.
I missed that.
Yeah, they're both bearing a brand.
I completely missed that.
Yeah, and so I wonder, and Michonne,
what the hell's wrong with me?
Mentioning things about how the communities hate her now, but they needed to survive. It was like she had to do something to make sure they survived, but they blame her terribly for it. And now Maggie's just gone out of the blue, and Herschel's
no explanation.
Herschel's flashback in the Rick Grimes episode, gave us a sense again that Maggie was going to step up to the plate too, where he talked about how strong she is. She will continue on, and her baby will make her stronger. And now she's just gone,
Mitch
you
is
know.
gone.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I felt that it was a loss for Michonne's character to have her regress back to an isolationist and a kind of
Hmm.
loner. And I miss understanding what happened with Maggie's character. So those were disappointments to me in the time jump. But maybe some of that will be resolved in the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll have flashbacks that will show what happened to break
Hmm.
the communities apart.
That's kind of my thing. Is that I think at some point they're going to need to go back and explain what happened in the 6 year gap that created such animosity between people that used to be so close. That's honestly, to this point, it's getting a little frustrating,
Mhm.
because I know we're kind of focused on episode 6 right now, but are looking forward, this continues on the next couple of episodes as well, and still no explanation. So I'm hoping they actually finally get to this maybe in the second half of the season, because it would just be nice to know what, and I hope they don't do it in a I hope they show us and don't tell us. I hope it's one
Yeah.
of those situations where they actually, whether they do, I mean, obviously it would have to be a flashback at this point, but do it in such a way that it's compelling and not just, oh yeah, X, Y, and Z happened like 3 years ago and we're just pissed about it.
And it's changed Michonne to the point that she won't accept the new people into their community, even when she's already decided against them, and she
Oh yeah,
pushes the whole
absolutely.
council against them without even giving them a chance.
Hmm.
And then she wants to take them to Hilltop and foist them off on Hilltop, but
Yeah.
that didn't make sense to me either.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense. Kind of what you were saying earlier. Like she was the only one, before the 6 year time jump, taking steps to maybe create a new constitution and a sort of laws and rules to live by, and yet she's the first one to be screw due process and
Yeah,
and get rid of that. So yeah, it was
And
interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happened to create all that.
if they're
yeah,
not taking new members, what's their community doing? Just
yeah, yeah.
just isolated and dying off slowly because
Other than,
you
well,
can't the
yeah,
birth rate can't be that
I
high.
was gonna
So
say, I mean, you can do it through procreation, but
not in
you've
this
got to be,
world.
yeah,
People die
not
too
in this
fast.
world, exactly.
And the whole point about taking them to Hilltop didn't make sense to me because how is it? It's more dangerous to get on the road and head out to Hilltop to drop
Mhm.
them off than to take them into your community after they had already, to some degree, proven what they were.
Yeah,
And they sent their doctor on the road with them. Did you pick up on that?
yeah,
The
yeah.
Yeah.
doctor went again. They
Hmm.
send their one doctor out into danger for no reason. They're not. That's another one of those silly decisions where the plot requires that they
That
put
should be a
characters.
law in your community, like
Yes,
the doctor.
yeah, the
The
doctor
doctor
has
is
to stay.
protected.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it was more like they have to find a reason to put characters into danger, just like when Maggie was having problems with her baby, and they had to take her to Hilltop or whatever. Remember, they all had to go on the road together, all of them
yeah.
in that
Uh
in
huh.
that trailer. Like get every main character in there, all have to go
Right.
so that they can be captured by the savior. It was so the way they try to put the characters into danger is still too contrived.
Yeah,
And that part of the episode, for me, those were some of the disappointments
yeah.
in that episode.
Yeah, you guys, those are really good critiques because I didn't think about it that much, and I just assumed that Michonne was changed by Rick's disappearance, and that everybody told her Rick's dead, move on, and she's saying he's alive. I didn't like what they did with Michonne either. Um, Not necessarily because she's an isolationist all of a sudden, because I just thought maybe she has her reasons. Um, but the talking to herself and then
Yeah.
talking to Rick and stuff. I
Hmm.
don't know if that was in this episode. It must have been. But
Yeah, it
the
was.
narration, this show does the most piss poor narration sequences of any show I can think of. They accomplish nothing. The dialogue is always so bad in them, and it even makes good actors sound bad to me. It's like she's specifically waiting to hit beats with the images. It's not natural. It's not right. And then when she's talking to Rick in the room, I didn't believe it. It's like, why would Michonne do that? I know she was crazy when they first found her. She was like feral or whatever. Um, and she, I just hate when they make these characters tortured and weird. it's like, wouldn't she be stronger? Does she need
Yeah,
Rick that?
that's
Does
the
she need
problem
Rick
of
that
regression
bad?
again. Yeah.
Was Rick that important to her? I felt like Rick was her chosen partner. He's gone. I mean, it's happened before. She's lost her kids. She's lost her other partners. Uh, she lost Andrea, and she didn't fall apart like that. I guess she's supposed to be an analog for the audience. That we're supposed to feel lost or whatever. But I'm tired of it. It's just like when Rick was getting phone calls from dead people in the prisoner. It's like, and seeing his dead wife in the white gown. It's like that wouldn't happen. It's somebody's dumb idea. But that's what bothered me about it was all her talking to herself. And this episode, I believe, was the one that started with her with the montage of her killing
Mhm.
zombies and then
Yeah.
raising the kid and then killing zombies and raising the kid. Well, I got news for you. That's from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that is an exact montage they lifted from one of the season premieres of
Yeah.
Buffy. Once Buffy got long in the tooth as well, and they were showing
Mhm.
Buffy having to do the vampire slaying with the normal life, the vampire slaying with the normal life. I mean, it was such an exact ripoff. It was, yeah. But I mean, I guess I could wait forever for them to do something new. But
So
um,
those were problems, but they could, although I am skeptical, they could be resolved by the explanations that come of what happened in the time jump.
and let me
So
ask
we'll
real quick: is
go for
Michonne
that.
the lead now? Is Michonne the lead character?
Um, that's a really good
That is
question.
a good question.
Is she Rick Grimes now? I
I
mean,
think
basically,
she's the closest, maybe,
I would,
to.
yeah, I would have to agree that she's
I
probably
think she had more screen time.
she's basically got the point, as it were, right now. She's on point.
she's the only one also that that they obviously put an arc in for. They said she's starting here, and so we're going to change her.
Mhm.
That's the only reason they do some of these dumb character switches is so that we can have somewhere to go with the character. They don't believe in
Yeah.
a strong character that reacts the same to everything. They want to see some kind of arc or journey or something, even if it doesn't make sense. Because Daryl's becoming more socialized, but he's not going to change a ton. There's no like massive arc for him. Um, Carol is Carol,
Mhm.
you know. So
Why don't we talk about Carol and Henry then?
Mhm.
You mentioned, Curlian, that you really liked the scene of Carol going medieval on the
Oh, I
former
loved it.
saviors. So,
Yeah,
like,
to me, it
the,
was a flashback to earlier Carol. After she, finally got out of her meek, basically beaten wife, problems, and she
right.
finally got just completely badass. And I loved that scene when she went back and she was doing it. It was funny because I was watching it, of course, with Brooke, and when it happened, I was just like, "Oh yeah, this is so great." And she loved it too, but she actually thought it was a dream. She's like, "No," she's
Yes.
just like, "No, no, 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 she did that."
That's for real.
And then she finally realized, she's like, "Oh, that really happened." I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "That was great."
that's the
Yeah,
Carol who killed the people in the prison. To
exactly,
And
that.
exactly.
Terminus is the one that the only thing different about Carol now is that she has a reason to believe in something. In Terminus, she said when the woman said, "You're a horrible person" or whatever, she said, "Well, I was never here." And you aren't either. And she shot her in the legs and left her for the zombies to eat
Yeah.
her. That was nihilistic. That is
Mhm.
very dark to say, I'm not even here. I don't know who you're talking to. She's not that person anymore, but
Yeah.
she's half that person.
Right.
She's the person that went in Alexandria and baked cookies, but still had the hardcore survivalist, and she's capable of hiding it from anyone because she hid it from Rick in the prison,
Yeah.
and she hid it from the
And
people in
she's
Alexandria.
married to an idealist
Yeah,
now. She's
yeah,
married.
Mhm.
Although
but it
can
hasn't
I
changed her at all. It has
can
not
I
changed
talk
her at all.
about that relationship for a
Sure.
second?
Yeah.
Because you
What you
guys
got?
got to talk about the proposal of King Ezekiel to Carol
The
back in your first episode
Daryl
about
Bosu.
Outer Rim. Yes, the barrel riding proposal. Okay, I've got to mention something about that. I
Barrel riding.
I, I mentioned
They
before
call
that
me Barrel Rider.
King Ezekiel, King Ezekiel and Carol, I think, are my two favorite characters. So it delighted me that they came together because they're at opposite ends of the spectrum.
Mhm.
And I love King Ezekiel. It's just personal preference, but, because of the narratives that I love. That I've always loved Arthurian legend, and I love Shakespeare. And King Ezekiel mashes them up together.
With
Um,
zoology.
and yeah, yeah.
Symbology.
and, and and if I had to survive a zombie apocalypse, I hope that I wouldn't survive I want to be killed in the first wave. I don't want to be around for when the zombies are around, but if I had to be there, I would want to be a knight in King Ezekiel's court. I would follow that man. I'd follow him over a cliff.
Really?
His
Did you see what happened to the last people who followed him?
well, I loved that episode where they fought against the Saviors and they lost, and he had to give the Henry V speech, the St. Crispin's Day speech about "Yet I smile," and this day we will live, we will survive. Oh, that was they write for him beautifully,
Mhm.
and the whole character is the type of character that you would think is so contrived. Coming from the comic book, if you told me, okay, you got to write a character who speaks in Shakespearean English, who pretends to be
Mhm.
King Arthur, and yet has to actually lead people in a zombie apocalypse, I say it cannot be done and it cannot be
Right.
performed. It
It'll
cannot be believed.
look like Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Who
Right.
run bought a town?
And the right they pull off his speeches are great, and the guy playing him delivers. He's
Yeah.
totally believable.
Yeah.
And
Corey Payton is an amazing,
yeah,
an amazing
he's
job with
He
the.
does it with enough of a wink and a nudge to where
yeah,
you
Yeah.
don't hold it
Yeah. Yeah.
against him. You don't
yeah.
hold the
Right.
campiness against him. You go
And
along with it.
you can see how it works then, how idealism works to motivate people to bring them together in the direst of circumstances. And what I love is that Carol, the realist, the ultimate realist who's willing to kill and destroy, for people to survive, got together with the idealist, because always the idealist has to have a realist behind them, to
Mhm.
do the dirty work. And so it just seemed natural that the two of them would come together. Why they had to ruin it all in the proposal scene by having them ride on barrels, make it
Yeah.
look
Yeah, it
like
was awful.
pretend
To
like they're
me,
riding on horseback.
Carol is the tiger. The tiger was Ezekiel's companion and
Mhm.
the reason that people flock to him because he's crazy, but he has a tiger,
Yes.
that thinks he's the bomb or whatever. So she is the new tiger. It's like she's the companion that should eat him alive, but doesn't
Yeah,
because she adores him or whatever.
yeah,
And
Mhm.
that's where his power comes from, is making people adore him and making dangerous people adore him and stuff.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is
And
a good combination, and I wish we had more. This is my problem with time jumps, is we're told and we're not shown too
yeah,
many
Right.
times. And they
yeah,
at least got a scene. They at least got a scene,
yeah.
even though I made fun of it because it took me out of the moment and it really was bad. The setting of it or whatever. But in this episode, yeah, I liked the relationship. Uh, Henry, I thought was fine, did a good job, and is uh I thought he'd have a little more Morgan in him because Morgan was his big influence as a
Oh yeah,
kid.
I
But
forgot.
Mhm.
evidently, when he killed a person, it probably changed him to where he didn't want to go back. Kind of like
Yeah,
with Carl, when Carl shot that one
Yeah.
person, and he after that he instead of going dark, he came back to more being a good character. Maybe that's what happened with Henry, but um, they're obviously again establishing an arc. They're saying Henry is an idealist,
hmm,
and can that idealism survive outside the kingdom? I'm
Right.
yeah.
telling you, Ezekiel's doomed. There's no way the
No,
father figure's gonna
no.
survive. There's no way the kingdom's gonna survive. And so yeah, because that idealism's got to come under fire and got to be tested and
Yeah,
everything. And it's got to stand alone. And if they're gonna keep the kid around, um, I think it's good casting. He's like the older brother of the younger Henry
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean, he's still a child actor, I have no problem with him.
And I like the relationship between him and Carol, where you saw that despite her being a badass, that she is still a mother. She's a wife and a mother now again.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah, all of that seemed to work really well. That to me those were the best parts of this episode. And I liked seeing Carol whenever she gets Henry away from the Saviors, then she goes back and does what she needs to do, without Henry
Yeah.
knowing about it, to get the wedding ring back that King Ezekiel
But
had
I
given
also
her. I
like
thought
that
was
she
interesting.
did not totally try to hide it from him.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
she just said, "Hey, I have my ways," basically, and
yeah,
he didn't ask because he knows he probably doesn't want
yeah.
to know. And I also like that she's letting her kid. She's protective, but she's letting her kid take his knocks.
Mhm.
Mhm.
She's still the Carol from the prison that was teaching the kids, but was still no. She knows the world's going to come in and get them, and there's not. So she's lost kids and everything. She knows the inevitable outcome and that it could happen again. So I'm glad they're not making her crazy where she's super overprotective and unreasonable,
Yeah.
and they're wringing some drama out of that situation. She's
Yeah.
actually perfect for Carol,
Yeah.
and Anyway,
this
very
was
cool. I don't know what I thought about her hair, but the way it
yeah, that
was,
was kind of that
that's
was
a little
That was
distracting.
a little shocking. Yeah.
Yeah.
what did you think
Um,
about wasn't this the episode that had the conversation between Negan and Judith in the
Negan and Jude.
prison?
Yeah, I was literally just about to throw that out. That we should talk about that a little bit.
That's the first time I've liked Negan in a while. I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting the way they did it, and I do love how I I think it was well written enough to where they led you down one road, making you think that she is being drawn in by him, and then she ends up kind of cutting the conversation at the end.
I liked that
Basically
part.
straight up telling him, "Yeah, I know that you're this horrible person, and nothing good can
Which
come
it's
from talking
about
to
time
you." And
someone said it, isn't it?
Yes,
yes,
yes.
and
There's
it's
That
no
was
more
Judith
the
who does
mucking
it.
around
Yeah,
trying to make excuses for this a-hole.
right.
the
He
one
is
thing
what he
that was
is.
the one thing I liked about the scene. When it started off, I began to get mad because I thought, first of all, why aren't they guarding Negan carefully enough not to let a child get near him to talk
Right.
to him? You know, how is this even happening? But
Mm,
then whenever you get to the end and you realize she's smart, you know, and she
yeah.
knows his crap, and she's not
Hmm.
going to take his
I
crap
Yeah.
and
and I
fall.
thought it was also it identified for us the audience who Judith is because Negan comes out and says you're the hero. He tells everybody. He says, of course you want to help them, and that tells us that he knows her and he knows her core is noble, and she knows him and she knows his core is rotten. So it's a good establishing relationship of saying you're the bad guy, I'm the good guy, and the good guy and they know each other, you know,
Yeah.
and there's none of this BS and stuff
Hmm.
going on with every other character with Negan and stuff. And I wish they would get back to that. I wish Negan would just be a bad guy and turn him loose and then get rid of him. You have let him do his damage, let him be dramatic or whatever. It's cool that he has a scene with the kid. That was better chemistry than he had with Carl, I thought.
Yeah,
Hmm.
In that
yeah,
I
whole thing
agree.
they tried to
In that one
manufacture.
scene, yeah, there was definitely more chemistry.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was too
Absolutely.
short, and then again, we're gonna go with the two other episodes. There was no revisiting that, I don't think. So I
Yeah.
was disappointed with that.
Yeah.
In fact,
All right.
Judith didn't get nearly enough time.
Yeah, there needs
She
to
was
be more
relegated
attention
pretty
on
quickly.
Judith. Yeah.
I thought she was going to be like almost the lead, but
Yeah.
I understand why she can't. She's a kid, has to go to
All right.
school.
So let's move on to episode 7, Stradivarius. This one,
Oh, one thing
interestingly
we did.
enough,
Hang on a second. I'm sorry, I
what's
keep
up?
interrupting, but we didn't even address the new characters. Yay or nay on the new
That's
characters
what I'm going to
and the
start with. That's actually what I'm
stick.
going to start with on this episode.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, because the whole point of this episode is kind of getting them to Hilltop.
right.
So one thing I definitely want to point out on this episode, it was actually, I don't know if you guys noticed. Did you notice the director of this episode,
No.
Oh, it was
Michael Cudlitz?
yeah,
Abraham.
Abraham,
Oh,
Yeah, he
yeah.
directed this episode,
which
That's
Stradivarius.
he's on a network show now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's on. I think it's ABC. But yeah, he's got some show. I forget the name of it, but it takes place, yeah, like in the early '70s. It's like a period comedy kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I've got it on my list to
me
watch.
neither.
All right, so episode 7, Stradivarius, starts out with kind of where we left off with Magnus Group, which we'll talk about here in a minute. That's the new group that was saved by the amazing sharpshooting Judith uh, back at the end of episode 5. So they're Mishona's kind of guiding them towards Hilltop, but she refuses to travel all the way. She's fearing a confrontation with Maggie. However, she learns from Sadiq that Maggie recently left the Hilltop in order to help Georgie build another community, and this left Jesus and Tara in charge. So Michonne brings Magna's group to their former camp, allowing Luke to recover some of their musical instruments he had been scavenging, including a Stradivarius violin. While Jesus and Aaron are discussing how to bring Hilltop and Alexandria closer together, they see a flare shot by an injured Rosita, who informs them of Eugene's whereabouts. After escorting Carol and Henry to Hilltop in order for Henry to apprentice as a blacksmith, Daryl takes Jesus and Aaron along with him to search for Eugene.
I thought you were gonna say Daryl takes Jesus as his personal savior.
Are you ready to accept Jesus as your Savior?
Dale's been there, done that.
I wanted why didn't they do the power walk, the slow mo walk of Jesus and don't your own personal
Jesus.
Jesus? That would have been perfect, but they never did that.
No, but we can't.
You're gonna do dumb music montages.
Shadowing.
Might as well do that one. Yeah, I can't do that now. Okay, so what do you guys think of the new characters?
Really?
Does anybody even remember who they are?
Oh, I remember well.
Can you name
I
two?
don't have a huge problem with them. That honestly, I think they're kind of vanilla. I, I don't, not that much going on there. I think they're trying a little too hard with the main girl of the group, the one who always has all the knives stuck in her
Yeah.
belts and all this kind of stuff. That to me just seems like it's trying a little too hard. Um, to create this, conflicted character. Is she good? Is she bad? Turn. Can she be trusted? I don't know. It just seems kind of boring to me, honestly. I'm not buying it. Then the other ones, honestly, just kind of like I said, they seem kind of vanilla to me. There's just not much there. Maybe we just haven't had enough time to kind of see who they are yet. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I kind of like the one thing I liked about them when we begin to see them interact with each other is that you get a sense that they are a cohesive group. You get a sense that they've been through the kind of things together that brought Rick's group together. That they were thrown together by circumstance, and they've become kind of a family that are going to stick together no matter what. So I did get that sense out of them, but I agree that there's not yet been a lot of foundation for interest in individual characters. The Stradivarius scene was pretty cool, where he talked about the importance of art and culture in the world, and why it's important to save that violin and save music and things like that for rebuilding civilization. But still, I don't know. Uh,
I
yeah,
thought
there
that I thought that scene made Michonne look really bad. Like
It
she's a
it
did.
did.
katana
It
master
did.
by now, and she's gonna slash a violin in two. Like that was just like a reach for some kind of dumb joke or something, just to give him
I
an
think
excuse to talk about it.
Yeah, for me, that whole scene was a little bit of kind of a contrived
Contrived,
drama.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did we really
because
believe he was up to anything sinister? She was the
that's
only
the
one
Yeah.
thing.
dumb
Yeah,
enough to
she
believe
here she
that.
is thinking he's like pulling up a weapon, and yet it's
Yeah.
like all he has to do is like it's a violin and just hold
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
up. Why
Or
the
hey guys, I'm
drama
gonna go
and the
check on my instruments.
yeah,
Just
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just seemed a little too contrived for my taste.
Yeah, that's
um
again where Michonne is. I don't understand the regression there again. It's like they are contriving conflict between her and the characters that doesn't need to be there. So
Right.
again, there's no explanation for that really
yeah.
that's satisfying.
I can't name two of those new characters. So they didn't make much of an impression on me. And
Mm-mm.
the one guy is from Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah.
And I loved his character in
Oh,
Fantastic Beasts, which
absolutely. Yeah,
which I
it's
I didn't
great.
even know I would like that movie. I'm talking about the first movie. I haven't seen the second one.
The second
Um,
one's even better.
he
So.
he he did a phenomenal job in that movie though.
Mhm.
But I didn't even realize that was him at first. But that speech about civilization and music and stuff was the same speech the beer guy gave in Fear the Walking Dead,
Mhm.
Alan I think is
Oh,
watching
I haven't
Fear the
seen
Walking
that.
Dead.
Yeah,
Okay, well
and he
there's a
does the
beer
whole
guy who
beer
gives a
thing.
whole
Yeah,
monologue after his
Oh,
beer
about
gets
beer is
destroyed.
life, and this is
Yeah,
because he
all
literally does this whole
civilization comes from
history of
beer.
like beer throughout,
Yeah. If you
the
don't
history
have
of
beer,
civilization.
your civilization dies. And so
Yeah,
his mission was to bring beer to the people, and once people had beer, they could start cultivating and become a whatever
yeah,
again. But
that's a good point. I didn't quite
it, it
put
was
that
it
together,
was
but yeah, that's about
it
the
almost
same
like
speech.
the guy almost even lacked any identity at that point because I've heard it before from the same. It's like they're just writing from the same book, and they're not ticking any new boxes or doing anything interesting, new and interesting with these characters. I wanted to see how that group interacts to each other,
Hmm.
because how they would interact to an outer group is easy. I mean,
Hmm.
you can predict that. I want to know which one is the one they don't trust amongst themselves. Which one is the one that would go to the mat and die for the other? The hard of hearing people or whatever was a little pat. It was like now I remember. I forgot about them. Now, those were I like those characters, but it's I just really you know what I mean. It seems like trying too hard to do something different, but they did a
yeah.
good job with that. So the music guy and the other two ladies who may be lesbians, I don't know. um I just didn't get one was knocked out for the whole episode, and she was
Yeah.
just there's a plot device to get them into the community,
Yeah.
and the other was just there to be the the rub against Michonne and for them to hate each other. and then to finally prove they could be trusted. Did that happen in this episode? Did they fight at the end? They get their weapons and stuff.
I can't remember.
I believe it is. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
believe that's
think
the end
it
of
was
this
the
episode.
And
second.
it was also, who was the guy that was guiding them around, and who was like, Michonne, you need to give them their weapons. Michonne, there
Oh,
was a
that was
guy
the
there.
doctor.
That was Sadiq, the doctor.
Yeah, that
There
was
was another one though, wasn't there? There wasn't just the doctor. Wasn't there another dude? Anyway, never mind. There's anyway, whoever that is, I like that character. Okay, but I want to see how those characters interact to each other, and then how they reach out to the established characters. But I didn't get anything. Much. You know, it's like that's what intrigues us about these shows is these instant dynamics between survivors in
Yeah.
a situation, and I've just felt like they've just been plopped in here to be thrown in as new characters. I don't believe in their crisis. I don't, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
I was much more interested in Jesus and Aaron watching the herd and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Oh
what's
yeah.
going on with the herd of walkers and what's going on, and because these characters now feel seasoned and you know, Aaron lost his arm, and these feel like the old pros to me. They
Yeah.
feel like, to me, when I see them talking and stuff, I feel like they almost feel like they're in that situation.
Right.
The new characters are acting way too silly and stupid, and like they're still finding their feet. You can't be at that point. It's how many years into this? You know,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have made it. So
Yeah, we're basically
just like
almost.
Beer Guy and Fear the Walking Dead, where the hell did he come from? He wouldn't have survived. You know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we're 10 years into
Yeah.
the zombie apocalypse at this point, basically.
and like you guys said, why would Michonne judge people for things they've done when Rick said over and over again, "We all done things, things, you know,
Yeah.
terrible things." So, so you know, we all know. We watch the show. You know, we know what they've
Yeah.
been through. Anybody in that situation. But anyway, they have potential. But again, please write something that establishes things right off the bat. It's not that hard, really, is it? If you have a goal of bringing people in, why don't you show us something about them? You know, that we connect to, and we know there's ways to visual storytell. There's ways to get the, you know, and maybe there's too much going on or something. Just when you were reading the summary, it was a whole lot of stuff all over the place.
There's a lot going on with the communities being
What
broken.
about Daryl and Dog and Daryl and Henry? This in this episode too, right?
That was the last episode. That was the last
what?
episode. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I
So
like the dynamic between them. That's
was this
fine.
the episode where Carol burned up the Saviors, or was that the last one?
Last episode.
That was the last one.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, what did you guys think of Daryl and the Dog? Because they continue in this episode as
I
well.
love Daryl and Dog. I
do
love
too.
Daryl and Dog. I think they're the perfect match if Daryl is going to go full mountain man, you know, going out on his own. I just like that he hooked up with the dog, and I like that he didn't bother to give the dog any other name. It doesn't need any other name.
Oh, no, that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
so Daryl. Just call it Dog, you know.
And I
What's he
like
gonna do?
how
Call it Fluffy?
they
you know?
work. They work perfectly off of each other. It
Right,
seems
yeah.
they have a stronger connection than some of the characters in
That's
the show.
really
you know.
true, actually.
They seem like they naturally belong together. So
Yeah.
I do like. I really, really like. This is one of the major accomplishments of the season for me. Is what they've done with Daryl.
Oh, I agree. You mean actually giving him dialogue? Yeah, for the first time in 3 seasons.
Giving him a moment to moment consistency where he's allowed to emote. He wasn't even allowed to emote before.
Exactly.
And I loved it when Carol cut his hair and moved his hair away from his face.
That was a wonderful moment.
Saying,
yeah.
you know, please come back to us after all these years of being whatever weirdness they've hoisted on you. And yeah, no, I can tell what Daryl is doing now, what his motivations are. I don't agree with the fact that he would spend 6 years in a swamp just because he saw Rick blown up in front of his face.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
That's silly, but I don't understand that. And you get the feeling that him and Michonne are the only two that didn't give up on Rick. But for Daryl just to give over his whole existence to this, you know, quest for Rick, that doesn't make sense to me.
See, that's why I think he bears the brand of the X as well.
So
like
you think he's been banished, or sick of
something?
people?
Yeah, something happened.
I didn't even catch on to that. So how did I?
Yeah,
miss that? When did you see the X on him?
Okay,
When
well,
did he take his shirt off?
you see Michonne? Do you remember Michonne's?
I remember there was a scene where she took her shirt off or something, and she had
she's sitting on the edge of the
in
bed.
the bedroom.
scars on her back. I
putting
didn't
her shirt on or
realize it
something.
was an X.
And you had that big X. Well, then there's another one. I don't remember what the situation was with Daryl, but yeah, it's another
I
thing
think
where you
it's
can
with
see
Henry, maybe, and Henry actually sees the scars. I think.
Yeah, and Henry sees it. Yeah.
What the hell could that be? And yeah, that's just weird.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so something else has happened to exile him from the community,
Well,
maybe.
this
But
that makes more sense now. Why Michonne would be the way she is, but
yeah,
I don't see any of those core group of characters that came from Atlanta ever, or from the prison even, ever turning on each other. Like I couldn't
no, I
see
don't
Maggie ever
either.
putting an
Yeah,
X on, unless it was a civilization breaking thing. Like we cannot make anybody exempt from the law, and they blatantly broke the law for some reason, and
Yeah.
and the community wouldn't. Your community's going to disintegrate unless you punish them.
Hmm.
Um,
well, the
which
tension
make an
between
interesting story.
Michonne and all the characters at Hilltop is just so thick that it's something drastic happened. Even between her and Carol, there's almost like there's barriers there that can't be surmounted. So something terrible happened, and it even seemed to be implied in the moment when Michonne brought the new people up to Hilltop, and remember they were riding. They were carrying him in a wagon, and Michonne and the doctor were on horseback, and they ride up to Hilltop, and the a rider goes sees them coming and heads towards Hilltop screaming out, there's riders, and all of the people working in the fields just suddenly drop everything. They run away from the mules, the horses,
Hmm.
everything, and they race to
So
get
you think
behind the
that's more than
walls.
just typical caution, that there is a threat out there that we
Something,
don't know
yeah,
about?
something
Yeah.
bad happened where they just immediately respond like that. So something drastic happened, but still.
Could it be the remnant of the saviors to getting
It's
revenge on the
possible.
original
I mean,
people?
Maybe.
because look at what happened with Carol and that
Carolyn,
sort
yeah.
of that group of saviors that they captured them and took their stuff away from them. So yeah, I'm sure there are still renegade bands out there
But
doing
didn't
that
he
kind of stuff.
say, the what do they call the saviors hideout? Didn't he say that was no longer a place to be? And she said, well, you could have joined another community
The
instead of
sanctuary.
joining it. Yeah, he's joining it my style. I wonder if the saviors went back to being a Ravagers type group or whatever, that just
Sounds
moves
like that, or
around.
it
No,
appears that way so far.
maybe they were the ones who are responsible for the scars or something, but
Could be. No.
Yeah, well, maybe
weird.
we'll find out. Do we
Did
want
anybody
to?
else notice? Was that like C. Thomas Howell or whatever his name is? That was one of the writers. I could have sworn that was him,
No.
or is that just a look-alike?
I'm sure it was a
You know,
look-alike.
he's been on some shows like maybe 24 or something or what,
Yeah.
and I could have sworn they had like a long-haired wig on him because they showed it, like whoever that writer was, they showed him, and then he showed up and had some dialogue. I was like, did he join the show? What the
I didn't even notice. I'd have to
Anyway,
see it
this
again
must
to
be a
see if I could
look-alike,
pick
or
him
I
out.
was I was drunk, which I need to be to watch this show
Beer.
sometimes. But
Yeah,
anyway,
beer's life.
it didn't think there was enough Judith. The scene where Judith face down Michonne was pretty cool.
Hmm.
Um, and again, I really liked Aaron and Jesus in this,
I
and
need to.
the fact
Same.
that they're working together.
Mm,
I don't know why they don't go out and just say they have a relationship. I don't know
mm,
why they didn't go that far, but
Hmm.
maybe I don't know. But I mean, if Jesus is supposed to be gay, he's supposed to, I think he's gay in the comics. I think he even has said so before.
Hmm.
mm.
And what else? Who else is around?
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to note is I don't know what's going on with these communities, but I still can't shake the feeling that there's only like 40 people in each. And so it kind of damages the whole epic. The hilltop
Hmm.
looks bigger now and stuff, but it still only looks like there's probably 50 people there. I mean, I've seen,
Yeah, there's definitely
uh,
more than that, but I get I see what you're saying. The way they're shooting it, the way the scenes
yeah,
are constructed,
I know it's
you never
limited.
really see more than a handful of people, so it
And
gives you
the
that feeling of just being
Yeah, and
small.
the kingdom looked like almost no one. Like there's like
Hmm.
just a handful of people left.
Yeah.
Alexandria was never huge, and they got massacred. So
Hmm.
what? What are? I'm wondering what the stakes are. They're struggling for these communities, and are they already dead and they just don't know it? Are we
Right.
back to like hiding and trying to survive no matter what?
Yeah, and what was Michonne said something, and it may have been in the mid-season finale, so I may be getting ahead of myself, where she mentioned that all the communities, we have to take care of our own now. When
Hmm.
Yeah,
Carol wanted her to, try to mend fences and get back together, come to the fair that the kingdom was having, is so we got to take care of our own. There's these separate communities, and there's a whole broken world in between them. I was like, what the heck happened to
Hmm.
bring her to that point?
yeah,
That's the
where
So
thing. That those are the unanswered
she could say
questions. Yeah.
yeah,
Carol and Maggie and all these characters are on their own.
Yeah, that's
Their
just
family.
yeah,
Why would she do that?
Yeah.
and
Just because
especially
Carol lives in Kingdom, she'd still be like a senior member of that community, Alexandria
Yeah,
community.
exactly.
and coming
Exactly.
after Rick's episode where his dream sequence was about finding his family and then realizing that this extended community that he's developed is his family, and now suddenly it's all broken apart. I don't know, maybe that was implied though by the breaking of the bridge, that these communities ultimately just they're not ready to make it together.
Real quick, the deaf characters or the hard of hearing characters. What did you guys think of that? Just, I mean, it has potential, and I
I
mean,
I think
I
it
like the
does.
actors.
I
Yeah.
think it does. I think it has
They
potential.
were given a lot of screen time, from what I
Yeah.
heard,
Yeah, no, they
and
have been given a lot. Yeah,
they
they
kind
have
of
focused on them.
they kind of established their characters fairly well about what kind of people they are, as opposed to the other two that I'm not sure about. So we'll see. Pretty, I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
Seems
I
reasonable.
wonder if there may be something that will give them an advantage that way in the Whisperers storyline. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about the Whisperers storyline from the
Okay.
What's
comic
next?
book.
So let's well basically just kind of wrap up episode 7. We get Henry starts his apprenticeship at the hilltop at the very end of the episode. Um, but to kind of connect to another storyline that I think we'll talk about, what I'm just going to focus on in episode 8 is what Gundark just mentioned. The Whisperer storyline really kind of kicks into high gear, and they've touched on it a little bit in episode 6 and 7. We haven't talked about it yet, but with Eugene and Rosita,
Oh,
they've
right.
encountered
Yeah.
them for the first time, and that's what kind of leads us into episode 8. So let's go ahead and get into the season finale here. It's called Evolution. This is so after Gabriel accidentally leaves Negan's cell unlocked, Negan escapes from confinement. Obviously, that's going to be huge. So we'll be talking about that a little
Did
bit.
they show that it was him that left the cell unlocked?
Gabriel
The,
was the last one
he was the
there.
last one there, as
Uh,
far as we know. Yeah,
yeah.
I
as
don't
far as
think it
we know,
was
he was the
Gabriel.
last
I
one.
don't believe Gabriel would
I
make
don't
that
think it was
mistake.
Gabriel either, because honestly, there was a guard there after Gabriel left.
Right.
There was a guard still standing in the room.
Yeah, and he got some
Yes.
screen time for because he walked up to the gate
Yeah,
and
and
looked at Negan or something.
he
Exactly.
took his handcuffs off.
That's
Oh, that
right.
was
He
it.
said
That
turn
was it.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a little
So
bit too
okay.
much screen time for a nobody.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, so back at Hilltop, Henry's beginning his apprenticeship, but he sneaks outside of Hilltop and gets drunk with the other sort of teenage groups that's there. That leads him to temporarily being imprisoned. Okay, then Magna's group is ultimately accepted into Hilltop, but Tara
Right.
tells them that they must earn their keep. Daryl, Jesus, and Aaron find Eugene, who reveals that he heard walkers whispering to each other, suggesting that they are evolving. The whispering herd quickly pursues the group and corners them in a cemetery. Michonne, Menga, and Yumiko arrive to help, but Jesus is
Nice.
killed after a walker stabs him through the chest. After
Spoiler alert.
after fending off the herd, Daryl discovers that the whispering walkers are indeed people wearing walker skins. The whisperers suddenly surround the group, and that's where we leave off. All right, so
So is Jesus' chest on his back? Because I could have sworn he got stabbed in the back.
He
he did,
did.
but I think what they're talking about, he came through the chest.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He
He
literally
went
got
all the
stabbed
way through
from
him.
the back all the way through the chest. Yeah.
Did water come out? Never mind.
Are
Oh,
you ready to accept Jesus as your Savior?
I think it was wine. Uh, so anyway,
Forgive them, Negan. They know not what they do.
so I'm very excited about this Whisperer storyline. I know a little bit about it from some of my graphic novel reading friends who have told me a few things that they're pretty stoked about the storyline. That it's a pretty big thing in the comics, um, and this I think is what is going to inject a little bit more of unpredictability into the walkers that we've lost. Like we talked about, I think in our last episode, like I think Gundark was making the point that, there's, for seasons now, you literally just walk up like yawning and just dispatch walkers. You don't even think about it. It's like the most boring, easy thing. You can literally just like push your way through the walker herd anymore. They're so not threatening. This is going to bring that threat back because now you don't know what's real and what's not real. Obviously, they're not the walkers doing it, but you don't know now. You
Yeah.
don't know when you see a herd of walkers. You don't know, are they real? Are they people? Or what? What is this? Um, And just as an aside, before we get too deep into this, I just have to say one thing. I am so not feeling this um, Father Gabriel Rosita thing.
Hmm.
Oh, my goodness,
Is
that
it
is
the eye?
way
Father
it's
Gabriel worked well with Anne. I was
a little bit.
disappointed
Yeah,
that
yeah. I
the
thought that
two of
worked
them
okay.
were.
I thought I could have seen that, but I do not in a million years see this. And I literally almost like my gag reflex kicked in when that. I mean, literally, I don't think we've ever really talked about this, but my level of despising Rosita is so massive. I hate
Most
this
people will be
character.
the
I
other way
loathe
around, probably.
this character so much. And I've never been a Father Gabriel fan that much. I do like him better the last couple of seasons,
Yeah.
but I've just it's like literally two of my least favorite all time characters, and I was like, oh no, please, my eyes, my eyes.
I do wish they had taken the opportunity with Father Gabriel to
Mhm.
actually have a religious person for once on a show who is admirable in that I know his origin was, he was a very cowardly character and everything, but now that he's reestablished himself, he once again is of this trope that is in Daredevil and that is in all these things. It was fresh 10 or 15 years ago of the holy man who smokes, drinks, and cusses and has sex
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
women
yeah.
and will not preach at you. They'll just be like, oh, that's what God is there for. When you need him, you'll realize he's there, or whatever. And they you know what I mean? It's the
Mhm.
modern holy man that, and they'll talk about science and stuff, and
Yeah.
they're the cool holy man or whatever. I
Hmm.
want to see one. I want to see one that is, more fundamental than that, but not crazy.
Hmm.
Because believe it or not, they actually exist. But we're never allowed to see that. So I would have loved it if Father Gabriel, instead of getting busy with all the female characters, which is I
Yeah.
have no problem with, but if we had seen the more spiritual side of him and why people would want that, because I'm sorry, this apocalypse is a curse from God. It is not a virus.
Hmm.
No virus
Yeah.
ever in the history of any life anywhere has ever acted like this.
Yeah.
For none of the characters to address that is insane. For them to
Hmm.
Yeah.
never ever, say they'd be going back to church in droves.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Of course, Father Gabriel would lock them out and let them eat each
Yeah,
other's
locked
zombies.
him out.
But if
Had them
he
all
was
get
the
eaten.
if he was
Yeah.
the preacher, but no, I think they missed a chance with Gabriel and Negan, for Gabriel to actually be a spiritual leader and begin to, it's too easy to make him just a fop that Negan overcomes or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I would like to see something with a little more depth there. The Rosita and Father Gabriel thing, it's just another thing. It's the apocalypse. There's, people getting screen time are going to end up hooking up.
Yeah.
Plus, if you look at this purely from a TV and what's going to happen next and what they're projecting, it's obviously Eugene and Rosita. Okay,
Yeah.
which to me is more sickening than Father Gabriel. But that is obviously the end play here if they survive or whatever,
Yeah.
or it's setting up something that's going to happen where Eugene sacrifices himself or vice versa. And who knows which one of these characters is going to go next? But they're not all going to make it. So, but there's going to be what else are they going to do with Eugene, and Rosita, and so it's another thing where you have to have an arc. So you start with a couple that makes no sense, just so you can get to the couple that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the guy in Sleepless in Seattle, poor Bob Robert Pullman or whatever. What was the
Hmm.
guy
Oh
actor's
yeah,
name?
yeah,
There's nothing wrong with him. He just gets crapped on the whole movie, but he
yeah.
has to be there,
Right.
so that you can get to Tom Hanks or whatever.
Hmm.
Anyway,
I
I
think
do have
Sarah
a
has.
suggestion
Yeah.
for what
sure,
we can do with Rosita's character.
sure.
She should have died 3 years ago. That character's just
They've made some
so
bad
terrible. She's
decisions
so
on what
overdone.
characters to
Yeah.
throw out and
Yeah,
what.
she should have been killed years ago. The problem is, I guess, I get sick and tired of that. They always seem to have that one character who's just like, screw the world character. It's like 'cause Sasha had that for about 2 seasons, until she died, and then it's like as soon as she died, suddenly it's Rosita. Now she's the one
The
who's
bad attitude
just
that
a bad attitude. I'm
yeah.
over everything, and everybody sucks. Everything sucks. Get out of my face. It's
And
like,
they somehow mistake that for being strong or something.
yeah,
And
I don't.
also
Yeah.
like we got to make this character push away everyone so that we can find a reason to bring them back at some point. We
Right.
can introduce a character that brings them back, like Sasha had Bob or whatever. And there's always a push and pull going on with all this stuff.
I mean, anytime Rosita's been in a remote amount of danger, I'm just literally cheering for the zombies. Like, get her, eat her.
But I will say I liked her. She seems to have a better attitude now. Maybe because Gabriel
with
is,
the time
giving
jump.
her the holy hand grenade or whatever. But no, I really liked Eugene and Rosita in this because maybe I'm just desperately looking for characters I know. And they're in a new situation. They're confronting these whisperers, and so I'm on their side firmly because the whisperers are pretty spooky. And I thought they were walkers evolving. I didn't know.
Yeah,
And
and
I thought
can
Eugene
I
was
get
right on the money. So
can I jump
yeah,
in there about the whispers or the evolving walkers? Is that the one disappointment I had with this is that they gave away the whispering walkers in a preview of the episode where that
right.
happened, and
Yeah.
it would have been
AMC
just
sucks, man.
it
It's
would have been
terrible.
stunning to be in the middle of the episode and suddenly have a walker talk. Because
Yeah,
I don't know anything about the
especially with two
storyline from the
established
graphic
characters in
novel.
jeopardy,
Yeah,
and they've never seen anything like this before. You have to
Yeah.
when you bring something stunning and new. Your jaded, well experienced characters have to acknowledge it. Like when they said, "Have you ever seen a horde do anything like this before?" That gives you the creeps when they don't
yeah,
know what they're looking at and they're
yeah,
suspicious, but they don't know how bad it's going to get. That's how you build,
yeah.
tension. I will say, why in the world did Eugene climb off that ladder and bust his leg other than a
Yeah,
light? Like
yeah.
literally, they had a ladder there that
The
she walked
plot
away from
demanded
for
it.
no reason. She just walked
Yeah.
away and
Again,
walked back just so he could fall to the
it's
ground.
contrived danger for the
Oh
characters
my
Yeah. It's
god,
again.
it's
contrived
so
danger for the
Yeah,
final
dumb.
scene.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
So, okay.
I
can
liked all
I
that.
talk about the whispers though? Because that I loved this episode.
Mhm.
I loved the
I
whispers.
did too. I really enjoyed this episode.
I like the idea that Carillion said that this seems like it's going to re-inject some real horror and suspense in the walkers. But what I loved also the way they were shot. The way the whole episode was shot in terms of the whisper scenes was beautiful. There was that when the night comes, when the darkness comes and the storm
Absolutely.
starts, I love Gothic, especially 19th century Gothic stories with the castles and the storms and graveyards and all of that and the horrific monsters. And this was pulling out all of those tropes where they find themselves, they've been out in the daylight, trying to get away from this herd of walkers that just unaccountably keeps following them somehow. And the night is coming on and a storm is coming on and they're looking for Eugene. And finally they get to the barn where we find out later that he's hiding and they introduce it with this incredible extreme long shot where you see the white barn on one side of the frame and fog is rolling in across the field towards the barn while they are trying to head toward the barn with their flashlights flashing through the fog and it's just the camera is really far back. It's just beautiful.
Oh, it looked
it,
amazing. Yeah, I
it was
agree.
beautiful, horrifying shot with lightning and thunder going in the background. And then when they find Eugene in the barn, and Eugene begins to tell him, you've only got the light in the barn of the flashlights. And Eugene starts to tell them, no, you don't understand. We can't just walk out of this herd. We can't just walk away from them like we normally do. They've been by here twice and they are looking for me. And the moment of looking on Aaron's face when he says that, they got the
Yeah.
flashlight shining on Aaron's face. It was just everything, the setting, the atmosphere, all of that was the suspense building up was fantastic. And then when they finally end up in the graveyard, I just love the use of the setting in the graveyard. Finally, you get zombies in a graveyard again. That really was scary. It was cool and had a wonderful fight sequence in the graveyard where they're trying to get out and they can't get away. And uh, the last moment, whenever Jesus is killed, and the walker suddenly speaks and says, "You are where you do not belong." It was like, oh, it's almost like You don't, living people don't belong here anymore in this world.
Mm-hmm.
This is the world for the dead. This is the world. And I think
That's the
maybe,
conflict, I think. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's what the Whispers have embraced, is that this is a world of death, and so they've embraced that fully. And that will be the conflict to come. How will the living people survive this? So it
Mm-hmm.
felt like it was going back to the tensions, the horror of the first two seasons for me. I thought it was just all the stuff with the Whispers was beautifully done, very
Really well
suspense.
done. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree completely with what you said. I love the cinematography on this. The suspense to me was ratcheted up a few more notches than it has been in a while. It's in regards to the presence of walkers. But at the end, I love the final fight scene. I really thought Eugene was going to buy it. When they were putting him over
Yeah.
that fence, I just thought you knew at some point one of the main characters was going to go, or one of the characters in that scene was going to go, and I just completely bought the idea that it was going to be Eugene.
Yeah.
Um, well, when it turns out to be Jesus, well, here's the thing. I mean, of course, they had some amazing scenes with him. Some of that great moves he was doing, jumping up and hitting
Mhm.
one with this arm and slashing another with the other arm, and it's just really cool. And then all of a sudden, he goes to that one walker, and the walker, you have seen, we have gotten so used to walkers doing nothing. They're just literally mindless. Just they do this, and then suddenly it ducks, moves back, and delivers a killing blow. I literally, my jaw was on the floor. It really was. That's the first time in probably 5 seasons
It used a
that
weapon. They
that
can
that
use
Walking Dead has
tools.
had that effect on me. I was just like, oh my god, and I knew it was going to happen. That's the thing. I knew it was coming because I knew what the whispers were, and I knew a main character was going to die.
I didn't know.
But I saw that happen. I was just like, oh my god, that just freaked me out so bad. That was so well done. I thought they just really, really delivered on that. As
Yeah.
much as I hate to see Jesus leave the show, I like that character and Tom Payne and all that, the actor. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was well worth it. That was a great payoff.
Yeah, and the whole fight with him and Aaron fighting side by side, and Aaron with the metal arm,
Yeah.
sticking in the mouth of a walker.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
exactly. It's
oh
like,
my God. Finally you have them fighting, and you feel like they are in real danger, not like
Yeah.
they're just
hmm
dispatching of a herd.
It felt like a last stand.
Yeah,
We're gonna try this. This should work. Well, it failed. And when
yeah.
Daryl did the
Just turn and
fireworks and the
fight.
dog,
Yeah,
and he saw the herd go on, you knew it was gonna be a
yeah.
disaster. It's like you're dealing with something you don't understand. I don't know how that makes sense. I don't know if they're ever gonna explain it, but how can these whispers direct a herd away from fireworks and stuff?
Yeah,
With
I don't
just
know.
vocal commands? Or how are they doing
Or
that?
was the whole herd whispers? Were any
I don't
of
think
them?
the whole
No,
herd. I don't
no,
think the
they were
whole. It's
not.
just a few of
Oh,
Yeah.
them inside, mixed
They're
inside.
directing the herd.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
directing it. Somehow they've taken,
I think
they
what it
become the alpha
is,
dogs of the herd
right?
somehow,
I think the
you know.
whisperers feed the herd. I think they, I think they've become. I think the walkers are smart enough to know if they're like the school of fish that follows the shark.
Hmm.
And eats when the shark is
Yeah,
eating. It's like
yeah.
if
They
we
know they're gonna
follow,
get
these guys are
scraps. Yeah.
delivering food. Yeah, so I think when he says you're where you don't belong, I think they think of humans probably as a way to provide for their army. They probably
mhm.
catch people and feed them to the walkers and other creatures and stuff like that. Um, and probably grow their herds and stuff to make themselves more powerful. Yeah, but that would imply again that the walkers are evolving a little bit, that
Hmm.
they're learning like we're not going to be distracted. We're following something that's paid
Yeah.
off for us before. Either that, or they just have some way of prodding them and getting them all moving. That I don't get yet. But
Hmm.
I'm gonna say, you did you like the Jesus death scene, Gundark?
Yes, I
Brilliant
did.
said he loved it.
Yeah. I really liked it. I liked the fight leading up to it, and I liked
Fight
it.
was
I liked
phenomenal.
him and Aaron back to back,
Yeah.
fighting side by side. The moment when they realized they're not,
Eugene even fought. That's when you
yeah,
know
yeah,
you're on your last stand. Is when Eugene
yeah.
Yeah,
is
Eugene's
stabbing them
The
when they're
fine.
moment
coming
when
in
they know they
because he
can't
can't
do it,
run
and then
anymore.
they
Yeah.
turn, and they look into the fog with headstones all around them, and they turn and pull out their weapons, and they know that anywhere out of the fog, these things are
Yeah.
coming that they can't
You know what
explain
it
anymore.
reminded me of? That scene of Fellowship of the Ring in the Mines of Moria.
Yes.
Yeah.
When they're all looking and investigating, and all of a sudden the orcs start showing up, and everybody stops and goes back to business. They all pull their weapons out, and the hobbits are scared, but the seasoned adventurers are ready, to fight or whatever.
Yeah.
It felt like that. It felt like someone's gonna die, but this is normal life, and the characters never gave up, even though they were in a cul-de-sac, and of course, Michonne showed up to save the day or whatever. I will say I was disappointed with the death of Jesus. Just because, like you said, you knew it was coming, but you were blown away by it. I knew it was coming, and I thought it was really badly telegraphed. And everything up to that point, I was on board with. It was great. The fight scene was great. It was almost like dun dun dun. Look at what Jesus is dead. It was it was just too. I found the reveal of the Whispers a little underwhelming. I wasn't ready for that. If you're gonna do it, I guess do it in style like that. But immediately they kill some of them, and Daryl goes, "Hey, check it out, they're humans." And then they really lost a lot of their mystique for me. I was like, "Oh, so it's just humans wearing tarps with Walker guts like we saw in season 1." But I'm going to give it a chance because this is all I've got. And also, I will say, you said people are psyched for the storyline. Well, people were psyched for the All Out War storyline. That's all I read about online was, you won't believe how mind-blowing this storyline is. Well, the show found a way to mess it up bad. It was a horrible bog of a mess. This is more simple and direct, it seems like. So maybe they won't mess it up. And I have no idea what's coming. So that's the only way I'm going to enjoy the show is if I don't. So I'm not going to, go read.
Don't look at any spoilers. Yeah.
But I also think it was a bad idea to kill Jesus off. You're down to these core characters should be preserved at this point. I think it would be more shocking.
Yeah.
It would be more shocking to defy your established formula of killing people off for big reveals and killing people. I mean, we've seen this how many times when they reveal an enemy, the only way to up the stakes is to kill someone else, and it's almost like a game of. There's no, Jesus was chosen on purpose. It wasn't random enough. A real event, there would have been some randomness there of who was the one sacrificed. But I guess they're saying, Jesus is our strongest fighter. He's killed in front of his followers. But it makes sense. But I would have preferred something more random. And I really think he's too good a character that never, ever got his moment.
No, I agree.
His moment was too
I think
great.
he was underutilized.
He's an actual good character. He just was never given anything. And also, I'm tired of the moral characters being the ones to go, and we're left with these conflicted, morally ambiguous, just drama like Michonne, like they've devolved Michonne into. I want strong characters that know what they're doing and what they believe. How are you going to survive?
And now King Ezekiel will be the next to go. You said
I
King
guarantee
Ezekiel,
you,
my next noble character to fall on the sword. No.
but overall, that I thought was good. I do want to point out one thing, even though it's kind of anticlimactic after the big whisper stuff. The scene with the kids drinking and stuff. Again, that was from Fear the Walking Dead. There's a scene where they come into a new community, and the kids go, "Hey, why don't you come hang out with us?" To the girl, and they all drink, and they pull open a bird's cage or something, and it's got a walker's head in it, and they say, "This is Eddie" or something, and they taunt the walker, and she's like, "We don't play around with zombies where I'm from," and there's an obvious divide between her and these people who are sheltered, and it's the exact same thing.
It was a similar, carbon copy scene.
It's nothing new there. So I understand they're trying to produce a show, and they got to pull from whatever they got, and ideas get reused and stuff. But I liked all the characters, and I liked Henry in it, and I think it gave him a moment of his own, to show that why he's different, and whether he's going to be a hero or be sacrificed or whatever, we don't know. But I hope they just let some of these characters simmer for a while and stop killing them off for shock value, and to introduce your new bad villain. It didn't. I mean, you got huge ratings when you killed Abraham and Glenn for Negan. It just didn't pay off. It ended up not being worth it. It was a phenomenal moment in a lot of ways, but it was also kind of sickening and made me examine my humanity a little bit. Like, why am I watching this snuff film? It was really went really far. Which, hey, if you're gonna do it, go for it. But I'm over it. Like, stop claiming killing characters is good writing. It's not.
Yeah. No,
They
exactly.
continually say, "How will this motivate the other characters going forward?" It's like, who cares? These people dying all the time. Show us how they live.
Hmm.
I don't know. If you're gonna kill Jesus off, he should have died knowing the threat more and like going out. I don't know. That's what he did. He put himself in there, but you got the feeling he didn't think he was going to get killed there. He was just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
handle these or whatever.
yeah,
And I wish it had been more desperate. I wish it had just been an incredibly desperate situation.
yeah.
And right when he felt like they were going to triumph, it was revealed. But hey, you guys loved it. 2 out of
I
3
did,
ain't bad.
yeah, I really did.
Yeah.
That
2
was,
out of
to
3
me, that
ain't
was
bad.
the best moment I've seen in about
Oh,
3 years.
oh,
I
why
felt like
don't
the whole
we?
episode built up to a great moment that just let me down a little bit.
Mm,
It was just a little too telegraphed, a little too
The
television.
the one thing we haven't mentioned in this episode is Negan's release.
yeah.
Who
That
cares?
he that
I
he
mean,
yeah, I'm worried
I was,
about. Well, I like the way it was done because
Hmm.
again, because of the way it was shot. The storm is rolling in again, and the fog is rolling through Alexandria, and they
Hmm.
have that
yeah.
dolly shot that goes towards his cell, goes towards the window, and something bad is going to go down with the monster in there. And then he finds his cell open, and the thunder rolls as he comes
Yeah.
out. And it's I'm like, well, it's too bad that he wasn't a good enough villain for that. Like,
Yeah.
I wish that he had
Yeah.
been where I would just be quaking,
Yeah.
that instead I'm like, oh no, not again.
Yeah, not
I don't
more
want
of
to have to
this.
deal with
Yeah.
him again. Please.
I still have never felt like there's a resolution to the fact that Rick and all of our heroes went into that savior compound and murdered all those guys in their sleep to start this whole war,
Hmm.
just to get food, to get an arrangement with Hilltop to food. I mean, they knew they were fascists, so they were, like, we're going to do the world service to get rid of some fascists, but that made no sense. And I remember at the time, Glenn seeing the pictures of the people with their heads bashed in all on the
Hmm.
wall,
Mhm.
and the feeling of just dread when he saw that,
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
didn't have time to process it. He just had to move along. But you knew that was some awesome foreshadowing there, and it was also like saying, you've crossed the line.
Hmm.
You have gone to the moral realm where you are going to be punished with this,
hmm
and it's going to be justified when it happens because you murdered people in their sleep. That was never really addressed. And
yeah,
Negan just
yeah,
threw his own people's lives out the window, like, you killed a bunch of my guys. I don't know. I guess I got to kill at least one of you.
Hmm.
Is Where was the moral outrage? That you guys came in and assassinated our people in their sleep. I don't know.
and
It's been
that
hard for
would
me
have
to
that
believe in
would
all
have
these characters after that moment again. And Negan should have been the punishment coming down on this whole group for
yeah,
making a bad decision. Then
yeah,
he would have more gravitas or
mhm,
whatever you want to call it as a villain. That's where you play him up as him being justified. Not that he's a hero, that he's an avenger or whatever. He is a natural repercussion when you
yeah,
cross the line.
yeah.
That something bigger is always going to come along and sweep you out of the way.
He's an embodiment of their own failings and what they
Instead,
brought upon
he was turned
themselves.
Hmm.
into a pitiful, just wisecracking,
Bully.
yeah, a bully. Yeah, he was just a
Yeah.
bully,
Yeah.
and
Basically.
there was
And
no real reason
frankly,
what
I
he
don't
did.
understand why the saviors followed him. I didn't get any sense about why did they continue to follow him when he just tortured. What did he actually provide for them? The governor's story arc had a stable community that looked beautiful and livable, and I could understand why
Yeah,
people would hang with the governor because he was giving them something that was like the old world.
Hmm.
Negan is just how can one bully pull that off with that many followers? I don't
Well,
understand.
it's well, he had his lieutenants, and he built that whole hierarchy, that structure, that society was built on because he did ultimately provide them the same things that, in some ways that the governor provided, his people. He just had his
they
own way of
must have
doing
come
it.
from a more desperate situation. The
Maybe
Right.
so,
governor
yeah.
took
I
some
agree.
people who were kind of already sheltered, it seemed like, and gave
Yeah.
them, and then he would take people in. You get the feeling the saviors came from basically being the scum of the earth and the survivors of the scum of the earth, and he just pushed them all together. And he was the only strong voice,
Hmm.
the strong man they're going to follow. He promised them stuff and he delivered.
Right.
But their whole concept was just bully everybody. Give us your goods, bully, or we'll bash your head in. And
and he has that charisma, like him or hate, love him or hate him, he
yeah,
has charisma. And if you look at history and look at all
Yeah.
the demagogues in history, they're charismatic. They attract
except
people,
maybe
people want to
one.
be around them. And
There's one I don't want to be around. But anyway, that's just me, maybe. But
But I really don't. I think he has run his course, and I don't want him coming back just to be more of the
he
same
was
old, same old.
Rick's nemesis.
Yeah.
Rick decided to cut bait. What
yeah.
the hell is Negan still doing here? And it's a shame if you had just he had so much screen time.
Hmm.
It's way too much. If they had just cut his story back and given us some reason for him to still be around, some reason to
Hmm.
care about him at all, what do we think he's going to do? Go reclaim Lucille and bash someone else's brains in? Yeah, we've seen it. What
Yeah.
is he going to do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
He's
agree.
useless now. I think what they should have done was the community should have come under fire, and they should have said, you know what, Negan's the best fighter we've got. And
Let's
Negan
get him
and,
out.
and they should have said, the saviors are an army sitting out there, all leaderless and milling around, and Negan's the only one left to follow. And we have, the Whisperer should have been such a threat that they should have said, we got to let the bad guy out of
That may
prison.
yet come,
We got to
though.
appoint him a
Hmm.
general, like the Romans would do.
That may yet
They
Yeah,
happen.
they would
it
even
may still
they would
happen.
take a mortal enemy and appoint him a general and say, this is the only one that can save us from the situation. Then you'd have a conflict with Negan, and you'd have people looking over his shoulder and trying to control him. This whole thing of just walking out of his cell, but I'm sure it'll lead to something. But I've lost so much faith in their ability to carry over story arcs that I think it'll just be a throwaway thing or something. Like the
Yeah.
lion, the tiger, just got eaten for no reason.
I know that was.
It's
Don't get me
just
started on that. That was
a
ridiculous.
tiger can't handle a swamp. He's a natural creature in a swamp. How can he handle it?
Yeah,
I think the tiger's
the
gonna be
strength
okay.
of a tiger
Right.
versus like those walkers that you
Yeah.
can literally blow over with the wind.
Yeah, and like a human's gonna bite a tiger. It's the other way around, people.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care if you got 5, 10 humans, they ain't biting the tiger. And if they bite him, they're gonna just piss him off, and he's gonna bite them harder. Give me a
Yeah.
freaking break. It's like our CGI budget. I'm freaking out. Kill the tiger now, now. Anyway,
Well,
but we're
I'm
talking
still
about the season finale.
having said that, I have higher hopes now for the second half of this season, and I
I do
like
too.
the
Yeah, I
introduction
like
of
where it's going.
Whispers.
I
Yeah,
will
I
say stuff
enjoyed
is
that
more stuff
episode.
has happened in this first half of the season than I can ever
In
remember.
a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So at least stuff's happening because it's been a nightmare waiting for stuff to happen in the
yeah.
past.
All right, so
Really.
it's ratings time. So for episode 6, who are you now? Um, Greedo, what do you give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'll give it a 7.
Okay,
Seven
Gundar,
and a half. 7.5.
7.5. Okay,
Yeah.
Gundar,
I'll repeat that. Yeah,
seven and a
seven
half.
and a half.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7.
Wow, I thought you guys would go like 9.
No, Stradivarius. We'll go with Gundark this time.
Maybe 5 or 6.
Okay.
That one
Yes,
was
that's right,
kind of,
right, man. It's just average 5.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'd
The
agree.
guy with
I'd say
the
about a 5.
zombie with the stupid shirt was the dumbest reveal I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like these little groups having their own little drama that is like way back. Like, this is a drama that should have been addressed years ago on The Walking Dead. Like now it's like, you mean your friend is a zombie? He's wearing a shirt? Yeah, we've had that happen a few times. It's not really that shocking. Get over it. We don't need to be dwelling on it. It really felt like amateur hour there. He was the goofiest. He looked like Jim Carrey on It's like, this is your friend? Are you freaking serious? No wonder he died. I mean, I'm sorry, he just doesn't look like he would have made it. I mean,
Okay, and for
okay.
the mid-season finale, Evolution, I'll start this time, and I'll give it, honestly, I'm gonna give
Oh,
it an 8.5.
I was confused about what episode we were on. I thought we were on Evolution, the first one. That's what I gave us 7.5.
Oh, 7.5 for you.
Yeah, 7.5.
Okay,
I'll
I'd
give
say
it
eight and a half.
I do too. 8.5 to 9 even.
Yeah.
But
But
then again, it's my biases for. I just love how it was shot. I
Yeah,
love
the
getting
visuals were
back
very
to the
stunning.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
They
wish
were
I had
really
paid more attention to that, but I've just been working so much that I watch it. I probably watched it while I was getting ready for work or something, honestly. And so I don't have time to, to sit there and dwell on what the shots look like.
I watched it when I was alone in the dark.
Ah,
Alone
Yeah.
in the dark.
The
So
reason
it
the
was
reason
like,
I do that
oh, okay.
the reason I do that, I would watch it when I have more time to focus on it, except that I'm afraid of spoilers. When a new episode comes out. So, and I really, I have no time, so I have to watch it in the morning when I have a minute or whatever,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't get my full attention. But honestly, the show hasn't deserved my full attention, I feel like. So, but when you do pay attention, you get stuff like the X marks and the
yeah.
great cinematography and stuff. I was more trying to hit the story points and see who lived and died and what the heck the whispers were. Um, I am interested to see where this goes, but I've been fooled by the show before saying these great storylines are coming up. And I don't want another storyline that focuses on just who's going to die. It's
Yeah.
over. It's over. You can't kill any more people. Why would we watch? Just for the next group, it's just a snuff film. It's a long 10-season snuff film at this point if you keep killing people off. But that is the show, so I guess they're going to keep doing it. I wish they would surprise us though and come up with some way that people haven't we seen every horrible thing that we can think of back in the episode where the guy got eaten in the revolving door. That one episode alone had a guy blown by a grenade into rebar alert in a warehouse, stuck there going, you guys go, it's too late for me, and they had to abandon him, and that was horrible. And they came up and just ripped him to shreds.
Yeah, that
Then
was
then they
terrible.
get stuck in a revolving door, and the one guy pushes the zombies through to just survive himself, and he gets ripped to shreds. That was one episode,
Yeah.
and haven't we seen every horrible thing we can see? So make the zombies a threat again, and go back to survival. I don't care about civilization, to be honest with you. You and your plows from a museum. That's dumb. That's the best you can do. Just shoot me in the head. I don't want to be part of your community. Put me in a cell with Negan, just so I can beat his ass every time he tries to speak.
All
Okay.
right. Well,
Great.
unless you've got anything else, I think we can wrap up.
When does the show come back? February?
February, yeah,
Yeah.
the second. I think it's actually February 14th. That's whatever
What,
that second
10,
February
10
Sunday
more
is.
episodes, maybe?
8.
8?
Yeah, it's always 16 episodes total, 8 and 8. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep. So, all right. So I'm looking forward to the next half of the season. I think it's going, at least compared to the last few seasons, it's going back closer to the right direction that I prefer, and I've enjoyed this half season more than I've enjoyed the last couple of seasons. So
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Is there any way Henry is Daryl's son?
All around here, solo always does shots first.
I think we just cut right there.
Sing your note.
That'd be a great place to cut. So everybody's
At the Cantina Club.
Dun, 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 dun,